Hello and welcome to Sami Parvez Show. Today I'm joined by David Krayden, the Post Millennial columnist. We will be discussing the mounting call of Trudeau's resignation from his Liberal MPs, the appointment of Lieutenant General Jennie Carignan as the Chief of Defense of Staff, who will be the first woman to take the charge in Canada and also in G7 nation. Harjit Sajjan role in Afghan Sikhs rescue from Afghanistan and also the US presidential race. Thank you so much, David, again joining me on Sami Parvez Show. It's a pleasure to have you again.
Nice to be back, Sammy. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you. So if I would ask you about Justin Trudeau's today's press conference, he did not comment on meeting with Liberal caucus in person, despite being asked multiple times. What would you take from that?
Well, there's reports that he's been calling people up. In fact, I was just talking about this on my daily broadcast.
Yeah.
It was my understanding that Trudeau is admitting he's called MPs, but he won't have a general caucus meeting. So there seems to be some discrepancy about that. I don't think he's called that many MPs because when I think of a leader calling up representatives, I think about President Lyndon Johnson, who was an expert at that. He used to call people every day to ensure that he had votes in the Congress and that he had people lined up on his side on the issue. And he would offer favors, he would threaten, he would abuse, he would cajole, he would do everything. Lyndon Johnson worked hard, even though he was a monstrous man at times. He was a hard-working monster. Justin Trudeau is not a hard-working man.
Yeah.
He does not take his job seriously, and I don't think he's been calling up very many people. But I think he's making a strategic error in not having a caucus meeting because this would be closed to the media. It would be closed to the public. They could air their grievances. Trudeau could say what he needed to say. And I think it would be a gamble, but not a huge one. And to go for the whole summer or pretend he can go the whole summer and just say, I'm making phone calls.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be good enough.
But if
his days are numbered.
But do you think he will resign anytime soon, or he will be kicked out from his caucus or caucus members?
The last time we spoke, I thought he was going to weather the storm. I believe that there's sometimes in politics, there's insurmountable forces that are beyond a politician's control. And I have found it fascinating that Justin Trudeau is going through the same kind of doubts from his party that Joe Biden is in the States for different reasons.
Yeah.
Justin Trudeau is not demented. He can still put a sentence together. But Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau share the same egomania.
Yes.
The same sense of narcissism. Yep. The same belief that nobody else can do the job as well as they do. And don't even question my ability.
Yeah.
And I really think it's almost like this is a moment of destiny, a moment of fate that is going to take both of these men down because of hubris, massive hubris. These people just think they're indispensable. And I don't believe either is going to survive. As much as they think they can beat these odds, I don't think they can. I was watching an interview with the MP from Newfoundland who voted against the carbon tax.
Yep.
Ken McDonald from St. John's, Newfoundland. And he's not running again next election, so he's a little freer in his talk. But if you read between the lines, he's saying Justin Trudeau's time has passed. And it's time for him to realize that. It's time for him to face the facts. And I think there's a lot of Liberal MPs saying that right now.
Yeah, Ken McDonald also called out Trudeau to there should be a leadership review back in January, but he was forced to walk back from those comments to CBC radio. Yeah, and let's jump to Canadian Armed Forces. We are hearing lots about Harjit Sajjan role influencing evacuation from Afghanistan when Kabul fell. And we also today, Prime Minister also announced Lieutenant General Jennie Carignan will be the first woman Chief of Defense of Staff, and also she will be the first among a G7 nation. Before so first I need to ask about this new Chief Defense of Staff. Do you think she was appointed on merit or just uh, uh, turn the channel, like to divert people attention to bring someone from first female to be the top commander in chief? So it means people attention will go away from other thing. So do you think she was appointed on merit, or she was just brought in, or it was just as usual? Trudeau always put diversity and equity.
Well, I'm going to sound like a politician in my answer, but I think both, because I have no reason to doubt her ability to do the job. I don't know. She seems to have done a good job throughout her military career. And I've worked for female members of the armed forces in my own career in the Air Force. And I never served with or under or above a female member who didn't do her job to the utmost of her capability. So I have no problem with women in the armed forces. I have no problem with women in leadership. She might be an excellent choice. I don't know. But I think the only reason Trudeau made the choice is not because he thinks she has merit. It's because she's a woman and because he wants to make another woke statement, just like he did with the RCMP, which incidentally turned out to be a disaster. That was a disastrous decision. That particular woman in charge of the RCMP was nothing but a political decision, as we learned, because she propped up Trudeau's gun control legislation at every opportunity. I don't know how this general is going to be able to prop up Trudeau's defense policy. But that's really not the point. I think he wanted to appoint a woman, and if it hadn't have been Carignan, it would have been somebody else who was feasible. It was a decision because Trudeau thinks it is a visual statement that people are going to say, yes, Trudeau is a feminist. In reality, the irony of all this is that there's no more misogynistic leader than Justin Trudeau. He is constantly browbeating and humiliating female members of parliament. We've heard this from several women who have had run-ins with Justin Trudeau. He threw Jody Wilson-Raybould under the bus when she proved to be too honest and too inconvenient. Gone. That's the kind of respect he has for women. He uses women like an out of control sex addict uses women in that sense. But he's an out of control politician who thinks all he has to do is appoint a woman, and all of his own personal problems are suddenly null and void. And this is a man who likes to call himself a feminist, but he does not treat women with respect. And that's been a hallmark of his entire life. Personally, as a man who is very embarrassing in his personal behavior towards women, but professionally as well. He is constantly putting women in difficult positions, blaming women for his own mistakes. And he's a farce. He's a hypocrite, complete hypocrite. And it's farcical to call himself a feminist when he is the first one to throw women under the bus.
Okay, thank you. As you were saying, you served also in the military. Could you please tell me about yourself, like serving in the military? What rank were you, and what you did, and why you quit?
I served for in two terms. I was in for 9 years and then a further 3 years. I went back into the armed forces. I was a public affairs officer in the Air Force. It had not yet reverted to the Royal Canadian Air Force before I left the second time, which is something I fought for my entire adult life, to see that royal prefix added again.
Mhm.
I suppose you would say a public affairs officer is often dismissed as a flack, as we would, as I call people now who are spokesmen for the government.
Yeah.
But I never considered myself just a spokesman for the government. I considered myself somebody who explained the operations of the Canadian forces, was proud to wear the uniform. I was proud to be an officer. And I always said, if you spend your time telling the truth about what the military is doing, you'll never have an opportunity to tell a lie.
Mhm.
And I must say, in my entire career, no senior officer, no superior officer ever told me to lie about military operations. And I never told a lie. If I couldn't answer the question, I just said I can't answer that question.
Mhm.
But it was often difficult to answer questions about the military because there was always a political fixation.
Mhm.
But that was, in many ways, the proudest years of my life. And I was in Bosnia with NATO,
Mhm.
which is, of course, why a lot of people remark about my stance today. I think NATO is way past its life expectancy, its lifespan. I don't think it has a legitimate objective anymore. I think it's doing nothing but creating the conditions for a third world war by agitating Russia and spending billions on Ukraine. So I'm completely out of sync now with NATO, although I used to write the talking points for NATO and NATO's operation in Bosnia specifically. So I'm a strong believer in the armed forces. I'm a strong believer in national defense. I have become a strong opponent of foreign wars and inserting NATO forces anywhere we please, especially when it's going to cause a war with Russia.
Mhm.
And I even now I look back on my time in Bosnia and I say, should NATO have been in Bosnia? Was that the right? Was the rationale not only correct, but were the reasons for being there honest and true? And I seriously doubt all of that now. And I've come 180 degrees with foreign wars. I used to support every American war.
Mhm.
There wasn't a single American war I ever uh, opposed. And now I realize I was completely duped, and I no longer support the foreign intervention the way I used to.
Okay. Thank you so much, David, for to our military. Okay. What would you take from Afghanistan incident? Is Harjit Sajjan was involved to bringing from his community, like Sikhs, Afghan Sikhs, to evacuate them instead of other valuable citizens. But when Sargent was asked, he replied to Globe and Mail, it was racist. It means for questioning that, I know you commented on that one, but it seems like he said that if I did not wear this turban, you would not question me for this. So do you think are we just questioning him because he is wearing a turban?
Well, if he wasn't wearing a turban, I'd be doubling down all the more, because this is absolute foolishness.
Mhm.
Harjit Sajjan is a buffoon. He's a clown.
Mhm.
And to find out that not only did he not save over 100 Canadians because he ordered the Canadian forces to go rescue
Yeah,
Afghan Sikhs,
yeah.
who we were not responsible for,
Mhm.
is absolutely obscene. And to find out that he did this while Afghan Sikhs were donating money to his riding association, is, as far as I'm concerned, the height of corruption. This man should resign immediately. He should have resigned when he pretended to be a hero in a war he was not even involved with. He was not an infantry. He was not a soldier leading troops. He was an engineer behind the lines. He had nothing to do with it. He had to apologize for his horrible misrepresentation of the truth in that case. And he was censured by the House of Commons for his horrible job of looking after sexual harassment in the armed forces.
Yeah.
This is a man who is incapable of doing a job honestly, properly, or extensively, or comprehensively. He's an embarrassment to Canada. I don't care what his ethnicity is. I don't care what his religion is.
Yep.
But he failed Canada. He's supposed to be the Canadian Minister of National Defense.
Yep.
He was acting as somebody else's Minister of Defense. This has nothing to do with his race. And if it's somehow beyond the pale to criticize somebody for doing anything simply because they're not white, that is the height of ludicrous policy. And I will criticize Harjit Sajjan. I don't care if he wears a turban or doesn't wear a turban, but he doesn't have a functioning brain at times, and he doesn't have any kind of ethics or morality that is commensurate with the high offices he's held. And I read a column the other day saying it's ironic they moved him from defense to emergency preparedness because this guy couldn't prepare for an emergency any more than he could prepare for a personal crisis. I don't know if he can find the men's room. This is a man who's completely out of touch with his job. He never took his job seriously as Minister of Defense, and he doesn't take being an MP very seriously. But the idiots in his riding keep sending him back, and that to me is what they got, exactly what they deserve. They've got an MP who should be resigning right now. He's clearly not telling the truth. And what's his agenda now? Does he think he's going to survive past this Trudeau government? Probably not. I think his seat's going to go down in the next election. But to me, this is another example of the corruption that defines this Trudeau government, because they knew damn well that he was not acting in Canada's interest at the time. Trudeau just shunted him to another portfolio because for Trudeau, this is all about identity politics. He thinks this guy is a hero to some Sikh voters, and that's all Justin Trudeau cares about. It's not whether he's right or wrong, or whether or not this was an insult to the Canadian military, and whether or not he's responsible for the fate of over 100 Canadians and Afghan interpreters and translators who worked for the Canadian military and the Canadian embassy and Canadian foreign policy and diplomats in Afghanistan. This man is responsible. If they're dead today, we're not sure what the fate of all those people were. But if they're dead today, it's his responsibility. He's responsible for it.
Yeah, thank you. But still we don't know how many people were killed, because many were not evacuated during that time because of this, and many resources were wasted due to just sergeant's order, but we don't know, even though the current chief of defense staff said they were just following legal orders. I don't know whose order they were taking, maybe sergeant's order they were taking, what they have to do, but those were remarks.
No, that's what General Eyre, Wayne Eyre, that's when he said we were following legal orders. That's what he was referring to, the legal orders of a Minister of National Defense. Now, Eyre should have said, hold it now. This is not right. But technically, it was a legal order because Canada had the option of rescuing other people in Afghanistan who, because of their religion or perhaps ethnicity, might be at risk of being persecuted by the Taliban. However, The first and the priority was for Canadians and people who assisted the Canadians. So he was wrong. He can say technically he did nothing wrong, but anybody who believes that is sopping up liberal talking points, because he was wrong to do that, and General Eyre was wrong not to dispute it, simply to say it was a legal order. Sure, it was a legal order, but it was a bad order.
Yeah, but no one is taking responsibility, as you know. Like since Trudeau took office, we did not say one day that I take a full responsibility and I resign, or I'm not going to do it, or I'm my apologies, you know. But we see such a scandal as being going on, and it has been just keep going up and up, and we don't see an end. Yeah, but
Well,
yeah,
the whole withdrawal from Afghanistan was a fiasco,
yeah,
and nobody got fired,
mm,
nobody resigned, and it wasn't just Canada.
yeah,
Canada looked good compared to the United States. The United States withdrawal from Afghanistan was one of the worst moments in their military history.
yes,
It was a horrible retreat when it didn't have to be. They were in control of that country. Their intelligence failed. They had apparently no idea the Taliban were hours away from Kabul when they thought they were weeks away from Kabul. They left billions of dollars of military equipment for the
yes.
Taliban.
Mhm,
They failed to rescue thousands of Americans. It was a horrible fiasco, but yet nobody ever said, I'm responsible. Joe Biden was responsible. He never said I was responsible. All he can talk about is, well, he saved the lives of 10,000 Americans. And this is absolute distraction, absolute distraction about what really happened. As Donald Trump is, I think he's exaggerating when he says it was the worst moment in American history. Well, I don't think it might have been the worst moment in American history, but it was certainly up there in the top 10. And this was a horrible moment for the American military and for America per se. And apparently Canada has something to regret as well now. And every minute that man was defense minister was a moment of regret. He was probably the worst defense minister ever appointed.
yep. But what do you take? Like what now will we see? Like where we will we go? Because we are keep hearing new scandal. Like before, we just heard Harjit Sajjan ordered to evocation of Afghan Sikhs. Then we came to know, yeah, there were guru who were sponsoring those Afghan Sikhs. They donated to Harjit Sajjan's association in liberal association in Vancouver. So what do you think? What else is what else do we need to know, and whether Harjit Sajjan will remain as a minister until next election?
Oh, yeah, he will. There's no question in my mind. Trudeau will not reprimand him, will not demote him, will certainly not ask him to resign.
Mhm.
He's in a basically innocuous position unless we actually do have a national emergency. Then he'll screw up again.
Yeah.
But in terms of just biding his time and staying put, finding him a relatively safe place, emergency preparedness, probably a good place for him until, of course, we actually have an emergency. Will he be, charged with anything? No, because technically he didn't break the law. He can just say, well, I have no control over who donates to my constituency association.
Mhm.
What am I supposed to do? Say no to all this money coming in? But if he thinks Canadians are that stupid that they don't see a whiff of corruption here, the scent of corruption, then he's a fool. And of course he is, but he's also very immoral. And he really doesn't care. And he won't apologize. All he can do is just write off the story saying, well, it's just a bunch of BS. At the news conference this week, he just wrote off the Globe story as a bunch of BS. It's really a bunch of BS. And I don't take Sajjan's word for anything.
Mhm.
But no, there will be no consequences for this man. There's never any consequences for any Liberal cabinet minister who, in many cases, should be charged,
Mhm. Yeah.
but they aren't. I don't have any confidence in the RCMP anymore to do their job.
Yeah.
I have less and less confidence in the Canadian Armed Forces to do their job. But I certainly don't have any confidence in the RCMP to do their job when it comes to leveling charges against senior Liberal cabinet ministers or the Prime Minister. So I think he will be there until the next election. I pray to God he loses his seat, that there's enough people in his riding, his Vancouver riding, who realize this clown has to go.
Yeah, thank you. And last question, what would you take like from US election 2024? Will Biden will remain as the candidate for Democrats, or he will resign? Somebody else, he will be replaced by somebody else.
I found it hard to believe they would replace Biden, but I think it's increasingly likely that Biden will be replaced. I think the pressure is mounting on him right now behind the scenes. And his performance in that debate was so catastrophic. It was so evident. And it amazed me because I was watching it, and I know you were too. I was broadcasting live on Rumble. And I was thinking, well, he could have done worse, because I thought he was literally going to collapse on the stage, because I've been watching him like go downhill for 2 years now.
Yeah.
So he didn't look anything different to me than he usually does. He's always inarticulate. He always looks like a 5-year-old who's lost on stage. He always looks like he doesn't know where he is. So I thought, well, he didn't do a face plant, so I think he might survive. But immediately after the debate was over, the assessment, the analysis from the mainstream media, from the liberal media in the States, was so resoundingly negative that I thought, I think he's done for. It's almost like the scales fell from their eyes, that they have been in complete denial up until now. That even though they see footage of Biden wandering around, his wife holding him by the hand, him waving to people who aren't there, him sitting down on chairs that aren't there, on acknowledging people in the crowd who are dead or not even there. It's like it took a debate to convince the national media he really is suffering from severe dementia. He can't do his job, and he shouldn't be entrusted with the nuclear football, because especially since we're encroaching further and further with a war with Russia. So I find it hard to believe that he can stay on now. That even as president, I think it's possible the 25th Amendment might be used against him to remove him from office. But I don't think the Democratic Party is going to sit by and say, well, we'll go with Joe because that's all we have. That's not all they have. The problem, of course, like the Liberals in Canada, is that none of the alternatives to Joe Biden is a winning combination either. Kamala Harris is basically seen as a inarticulate joke who can't put a sentence together. And you look at Gavin Newsom from California. He has destroyed that state even beyond recognition. Everybody's leaving California. Gretchen Whitmer, she was a complete hypocrite during the COVID crisis and almost engineered her own kidnapping. So these people all have incredible baggage, and they don't really offer a resolution to the problem the Democrats have, which is that they're in a horrible position. They've got a leader who's demented, but they've also got a leader who has presided over 4 horrible years. Biden has no record to run on. The Democrats have no record to run on. It's been 4 years of hyper spending for nothing, on nothing but pet projects for Democratic Congress women, namely Nancy Pelosi and others. It's been 4 years of no border, 45 million illegals coming across the border, 600,000 children lost at the border, probably sold into sexual slavery. And it goes on and on and on. There is no record to run on. So go ahead, put Gavin Newsom in there, put Kamala Harris in there. It's not going to work this time. I think Donald Trump is fated to be the only person to become president in non-consecutive terms. This only happened once with Grover Cleveland in the 1890s. He's the only other man to be president, lose the job for 4 years, and come back 4 years later. I think Donald Trump's going to be only the second man to do this.
Yeah.
And he's worked hard for it, and I certainly think he deserves it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, David. I will just leave it here, and I hope see you again. And
Okay.
yeah.
Thanks, Sammy.
My pleasure.
See you soon.
Take care. Have a good one.